I want to be honest. I think anxiety is something that we all go through, and although I think I have some really helpful tips, it's something that I think I still struggle with. The things that I will say has helped me, but won't help everyone. These are the things that I have learned, and the things that I think have helped me. So number one, don't be bored. So I think boredom leads to anxiety. Outside of like chemical imbalance and like trauma and all that stuff, like boredom gives you time to wander, gives you time to think and overthink, and it puts you in a place of uncertainty. When you avoid boredom, you should give yourself purpose, give yourself something to do, whether it be a mission, clean your room, clean the house. Give yourself some sort of structure, give yourself some sort of thing, a task that you have to do, and don't let yourself be bored. Find something to do at all times. There's a saying when I was young that like a bored mind leads to like a way that the devil can enter. I butchered that really badly, but a bored mind gives you a place to let anything come through, and usually the things that come through are negative things. Number two, I would say limit your social media use. Social media has its ups and downs, obviously, but creating that boundary of how much you consume it is super healthy. This goes into a lot of social anxiety. Social media inevitably gets you to compare. Social media pushes this narrative that everyone is doing great, and it makes you reflect in unrealistic ways that what you're doing is not good enough. And so it'd be awesome if you just cut social media out of your life. But if you can't, I would recommend consuming less and limiting how much you consume it, because it will destroy you. The next tip I would say is to focus on your health. I can speak on my experience that my poor health, my poor nutrition, my poor workouts affected my mental state, my anxiety. You don't really understand this until you change it. That like the food that you're consuming when you're most anxious does play a part in how anxious you are. And only until you can consume different types of food that's healthy for you will you get more clarity and more willpower to overcome anxiety. Working out, I think, gives you purpose. It doesn't allow you to be bored. It helps that structure build in, and that gives you a good discipline. And the way you look and the way you feel will go a long way with your anxiety. Quick tip would be just like reduce your sugar intake. I think that is like number one. Reduce how much sugar you have, and that will help you with like mental clarity. Branching off with like nutrition and exercise, I would advise you to get better rest. Sleep is another important thing that you have to reduce anxiety. And when I say have a good night rest, I would emphasize building a routine to go to sleep and wake up. Create a routine of what you're gonna do. Try to wake up and go to sleep at the same time. And that will help. That will help anxiety. Like anxiety, I think, is that uncertainty of not knowing how things are gonna turn out. And so building structures and building a process, building a routine gives you that certainty, and it gives you that little sense of control in your life. Another helpful tip, and I would say this one has helped me so much, is to when you know that you're going through an anxious phase where you see something coming up and that will cause you to be anxious. Look at that fear head on and understand what is making me anxious about this situation. Is this fear of what's going to happen realistic or unrealistic? And I think anxious people don't know how to differentiate between those two, if a fear is irrational or irrational. But try to. Play these scenarios in your head, because I know you will. Play the scenarios of the worst situation happening. And then think about, if this situation happens, let's say the worst of the worst happens, how will it affect you afterwards? Will you remember that situation tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now? Will it cause you to not be stable? Or will it just be a situational thing that it will hurt for a little bit, but you'll get over? Like, is this worth worrying about? That's the main question. Will you remember it after it happens? How likely is this thing going to happen? How likely is the worst fear going to happen? And sometimes you have to just vocalize that. Vocalize what you think is going to happen. Like, write it out. Organize these thoughts of uncertainty and get to a level of certainty. Next tip is a bit difficult. I think it's a hard pill to swallow, but I would say that sometimes you have to go through your worst anxious moments to reduce anxiety. You have to face that obstacle. You have to face that monster, and you'll realize how much you were overthinking, how much stronger you actually were. So like, sometimes you get in anxious situations and we think it's the worst of the worst and that we will not overcome it. And there's no other chance to avoid it. There's like no other way to avoid it. And so you face it and you get through it. And that situation has helped you build a defense mechanism or a defense against that anxiety. Sometimes life blesses us with those obstacles that we have to face. But once we face them, we have tackled the monster, the hidden scary thing in our lives. That helps us get stronger. Facing the obstacle helps us get stronger. There's something about that experience that helps us build. And I think sometimes we have anxiety because of lack of experience in certain things. Until we face that obstacle will consume us. Until we face that anxiety, that anxiousness will consume us. I think there is anxiety that's healthy. There's things that we should worry about. There's things that helps us stay rooted. And it's not about not being anxious. Know how to perform when anxiety happens. Know how to overcome it when it does, and not let it consume you. Anxiety is something that happens to everyone. People get stressed, people get worried, and it's achievable to overcome. Don't ever forget that there's a way out, there's an option to overcome it.